Stourbridge and Stourbridge Glass Quarter was sort of the heart of glassmaking in the 19th and 20th century here in Britain. It started here in the Black Country because of the unique geology that we have here. So all throughout the landscape, we've got this unique mixture of 12-foot thick coal seams that were right at the surface for mining, for fuel. But then you'd also got sand and you've got limestone, which are the ingredients for glass. And then as well as that, we've also got fire clay here, which meant that you could use it for pot making, which you need in glass to basically cook the glass in, and also for building the cones as well. So those are red brick structures. We've had 200 years of mass production here. So this was an industry that was happening where people were building cones, and often they would have one cone that would sort of support tableware, bottle making, and the other cone would be for more refined things, so more artistry pieces.
Where the Stadium of Light is at the moment now used to be a massive coal mine. So back in the day, that was your fuel source. You had the shipyards, which you used to export and import. When certain articles went out, you used to fetch the sand back to make the glass for ballast for the ship. So it was obviously ideal area for the industry. So to apply any colour, we've got different coloured glass here. This is like a sugar foam, so it covers the full surface.
I think probably the first thing that attracted me to it was that it was incredibly difficult to do. I think it's incredibly difficult to master. I've been working with it for over 30 years and it's still the master of me. That's what's great. It wouldn't be fun if it was easy. So, but also I think the more you work with it, the more you learn about it. And the more you learn about it, the more it rewards you. And I think there's a massive depth to what you can do with it as a material, but also to what it teaches you as a material, how you can decorate it, how you can manipulate it, what its limits are. I don't think it's better than anything else by any stretch of the imagination. Everything, any craft discipline is just so difficult, but I just happened to fall into working with glass really, and it's been a bit of a love affair ever since.
Furnaces are underneath the cone shape. So inside there, you will have up to 14 different pots. And at each of those pots, you'll have people gathering glass inside the furnace at the glory hole. And then you have people working around in teams, supporting the gaffer who's doing the main glass blowing.
The colours, they all come with different metal oxides. So the green is made with iron oxide, so iron's relatively cheap. Move into the turquoise, which is a copper. Then a blue, which is cobalt. Purple, manganese, all the way up to the precious metals, which is the pink, and the rubies, which is made with gold. So now we shape it up, just use a little wooden block. And then refine the shape using this newspaper pad, which is soaked in water. And then I'm going to introduce the first air bubble. So I've just blew down the iron, trapped the air with my thumb. And the air pressure travels up the iron, hits the hot glass and expands into a bubble. So now I'm going to let this cool down and then gather some more glass from the furnace.
So after we've had this sort of build-up of factory industry in Stourbridge Glass Quarter, out of that we found that a lot of innovation came from it as well. Adding colour into glass, so we've got the beautiful uranium colours here. You've got the ruby, which is where they started adding gold into the mixture as well, so something really highly prized. On top of that, you've then got innovations in the Industrial Revolution, which is happening here at the heart of the Black Country and adjacent to Birmingham as well. So new technologies are being used to make things quicker, better, and that results in different types of cutting techniques on different wheels. different decoration being applied, so everything from enamels to development of using different colours cased together. So, for example, the reds, the ruby red underneath the white, which created this piece here and then was cut through as well. So you've got a lot of innovation with different sort of technologies, but also you've got artistry emerging from all of these different sort of craft techniques built in the industry as well.
So this work is actually brand new, and it's not actually evolved from anything that I've been working on before. I didn't really know what I was going to do, and I think visiting a couple of local spots, certainly Blast Beach and Seaham, and going past the Teesside skyline, these works just started to grow from that, really, certainly from the patina of the beach, and with a nod to retrofuturism, you know, the Ridley Scott Blade Runner films and things that were based on that Teesside skyline. There's many ways of introducing colour and texture to glass as a material, but to get this really fine patina, it's a case of building up layers of colour. So I start with a base colour, but then really melt that in, so you've kind of got a canvas to work from. And then working with colours which react really differently to different heats, and sieving them on but not quite melting them all together gives this beautiful textural effect. There's some nice bits of iridisation on a couple of the pieces which kind of suggest that they might be leaking. They're not quite joined, exuding a bit of their toxicity out of a system that's not quite as efficient as it should be. Gives a nod to the industrial heritage of the area, certainly. I mean, I think that's a large amount of it, certainly working with the patina, working with the forms. But also there's sort of anthropomorphic connotations to it as well, you know, societal structure, toxic culture, and taking that from literally from pollution to, you know, our rivers and the beaches. We've had some terrible incidents here on the northeast coast. These sort of like closed systems of toxicity. I've kind of got names for them. These closed systems I call perpetuates. So between these different bodies, they perpetuate a toxicity. And these ones which are open I call exuders. So they work between two systems and exude a little bit into the atmosphere.
So with engraving, it's all a matter of adding layers on top of each other. So the more layers, the more of a kind of detailed image you can express. You kind of have to force yourself into learning. So that's the only way you can learn engraving. By doing it, making mistakes and think, okay, that didn't work out, so we try another way. And then it gradually becomes a natural process. So let's say like you want to do a horse. You'd use the stone wheels to carve the shape of the horse. Then you'd add the muscles. You'd use the copper wheels then to add the finer details. So like say you wanted the bristles of the tail. So it's all about having the right tools, knowing how they work, and then combining them creates something really unique.
The rediscovery of the technique of cameo glass was inspired by the vandalism and destruction of the Portland vase in the British Museum, an ancient Roman vase that looked a lot like these. This technique had been lost for thousands of years, and two guys from Stourbridge said that they could find a way to reproduce this. So Pargeter and Northwood came together and had glass blown just like the case glass, where it was layered glass with a colour covered with a white. They then covered where they wanted to keep the decoration in the white in beeswax and tallow resist. It was dipped in acid, so just the silhouette of what they wanted for the design was left. And then an artist would come in with little lead tools and hand carve this. So although it looks a lot like the Wedgwood sort of pottery that we see where it's sort of pressed and applied decoration, this is hand engraved, so this is hours and hours of work.
I've always loved drawing and I've always loved pencil drawing, and to me it's pencil drawing on glass. So this is similar to a pencil. The different drill bits are like the different shades of lead that you use, and I love it. I love the way they come out, although they take such a long time. When they're finished, they're just such beautiful pieces.
I really love the process of collaboration. Working with other artists can be incredibly rewarding, but To me also, I think it really makes you think far more outside the box. It's an egoless job. You have to give yourself completely to that project, or whether that's a small individual project or a large project, and do everything you can to make sure that you can facilitate it to the best of your ability. The most fantastic thing about it is that you're exposed to so many different ways of thinking. Other people's ideas are always completely different. Other people's aesthetic is always very different. But also it forces you down a route of, I think, really working with what I call hybrid techniques. So a lot of crossover between certain techniques, understanding your material, and hot glass is one thing, but then using components from water jet cutting, printing, all these other parts come in to sometimes make up a whole object. When you're working with, in the creative industries with a three-dimensional material, there's a quality to that that's not any better, it's just different. You know, there's a different quality to working with something with your hands. The glass-making industry has always been incredibly collaborative, certainly as far as the hot glass process is concerned. You need more than one person to do it, and you've got to have a great relationship with the people that you work with. A lot of people will shout from the rooftops that their craft is better than other people's craft, but I embrace the whole lot. I think that, you know, we'd be a much poorer place culturally and socially without a massive heritage in crafts and creativity and arts. What can't you do with glass? That's a good question. I think there's plenty that you think you can't do. I've always talked about, whenever I do any facilitation projects, I always talk about it's very easy as a get-out clause to say, oh, you can't do that, it's impossible. But I'm always one for trying something even if I think it is impossible. So, I mean, there's things that it kind of won't do, but I always talk about having a relationship with it where you can try and persuade it in the very best way. So, you know, there's obviously boundaries with any material as to what it can and can't do, but I'd like to think that I can spend the rest of my life searching for what they are.